So I bought this new mic recently, just a Blue Yeti mic, and I started recording this video, and I got about a minute in until I realized it was mute, because I can never tell with this mic. I mean, it's just, if it's on, it's red, but when it's off, it's flashing red. Like, how am I meant to like tell? Like, what does that mean? Anyway, so we're starting again. I decided to wear my Spice Girls t-shirt for my first appearance on camera because I thought, why not? It's my favorite shirt. It kind of shows who I am. You know, I'm a big Spice Girls fan. You can really tell. I look like someone who listens to the Spice Girls. Anyway, so we're starting again, and we're gonna talk about some movies that came out this year. So we're coming to the end of 2022, so I thought it would be a good idea to talk about some movies that didn't necessarily make my top 10 list or like my top 10 worst list of the year. We're just going to talk about some movies that came out, I saw, and I kind of have some thoughts on, so I'm going to share them with you. So anyway, let's start with Avatar: The Way of Water.
We cannot let you bring your war here.
Outcast. That's all they see.
I see you.
So I saw Avatar 2 like a few days ago, and it was, you know, it was the same movie as the first one. You know, I saw the first movie the day before I went to see this one, and it was like identical, beat for beat. It was like the same movie. I was so shocked. I do have positives about this movie, so I don't want to start off on this tangent about like why this movie's bad, because I liked the movie, but I couldn't help but feel that they were just replicating the success of the first movie. Let's talk about, I guess, the visual effects, which is like the main reason why people are going to see this movie. And the visual effects are really stunning. They're great. There was no point in the movie where I was feeling like, oh, this is all fake, it's all green screen, it's all people in suits. Everything is so seamless, it never took me out of the movie at all. It's so weird seeing like behind the scenes stuff of this movie where like actors are going into a pool of water and performing that way in motion capture suits, and they're filming them like that. It's incredible. They really, you know, they're going the extra mile to make this movie that's covered in visual effects, it make it look real, and it really does. No doubt about it. Is it going to like take the Oscar home with it for next year? I mean, what else? Nothing else came out this year with visual effects that good. So it's a good movie, but it has flaws. But anyway, let's keep talking about some positives. Instead of having like Jake Sully, you know, Sam Worthington, and Zoe Saldana take the lead on this one, they kind of take a back seat for this, which I wasn't expecting. You know, I was expecting them to still be like the main characters, but in ways they're still like supporting characters in this movie, which I was pretty shocked by. You have these kid characters who are, you know, like the kids of the two main characters of the first movie, and they're the ones that are kind of like taking us through like the story and like the adventure. And for the most part, it works. Like, I was actually surprised mostly on how great that kind of worked out, and how I was actually not being annoyed by having to follow like kids. Because we get this like thing all the time where like movies come out and it's just a bunch of like kids. Instead, I guess, you know, like Stranger Things came out and studios thought like, hey, people like Stranger Things, maybe if we put kids in our movies, then people will like it too. But, you know, from what I know, James Cameron, he had his way over the making of this movie, so I guess he must have decided that. I read somewhere that he turned it into the studio, and they said that they had no notes for it, like it was perfect, and, you know, there was nothing about the script that he should have changed. That being said, though, I did have some issues with the dialogue. I don't want to spoil the movie too much, but there's the scene, and for the people who have seen it, it's the scene where one of the daughter characters is being called a freak. That dialogue in that scene was so unbelievably cliche and just unoriginal. Like, it was just like high school teenage bully characters written by some 60-year-old man, you know, like some kind of like Back to the Future or something.
So what's it to you, butthead? You know, you've been looking for a
It doesn't work, and I think that dialogue there and some other dialogue in the movie is what really took me out of it, because a lot of it is very, very unnatural. Anyway, so that wasn't the worst part about the movie. I mean, I was saying before that this is pretty much the same movie as the first one, and it is. Like instead, in the first one, they are trying to mine like minerals or something, but they're like destroying the land of the natives. And in this one, instead, I guess like over halfway into the movie, I guess it's all about like poaching and like trophy hunting and how bad that is. And instead, it takes place by the water instead of like a jungle. Really, it's the same movie. And I was kind of disappointed and underwhelmed the fact that I'd seen the first one again the night before and then gone to see this and felt like I had really the same experience over and over. They even like recycle the same villain again. They just like bring him back and they kind of just like have this exposition, like they make up this shit about like, how he comes back and stuff, and it's just, it doesn't make any sense at all. I was very, very disappointed by just a lot of it. I mean, I wasn't expecting a lot for an Avatar movie, don't get me wrong, but I was, you know, I was expecting something. The movie was getting reviews like, you know, this is on par with the first Avatar movie, and in ways, like, yeah, it is, because it's the same thing. Like, I couldn't believe it. The third and final act of this movie was just, it was like horrendous. It was terrible. The end of the movie is just like an hour of fighting and explosions and fire, gunshot and knives and like assassins and like stunts, and it's just, it's like a little like too much. The rest of the movie is pretty like mellow. Like, it's just nice to kind of watch through and see these kids kind of explore the like new environment, and we kind of build upon like Pandora. It starts to seem more real than it was in the first movie, but it's completely ruined, and I feel like I can't help but have my experience hindered by the final hour of the movie, which is just, it's just hideous. Really, just nothing good going on at all. I was bored. And I think that's when I started getting taken out of the movie. It's kind of taken from like Marvel movies in a way where it's just like set up, so then you can get to the end, and that's kind of like the part of the movie that you're trying to sell. It's not interesting. It was kind of like a romantic, immersive movie up until then. These kid characters, I liked them. I did. I really liked them. I'm kind of glad that Sam Worthington wasn't in the movie as much, because he just can't act. Especially in this. He's so like stoic with his dialogue, and you can't tell what he's thinking like any of the time, because he just talks like this the entire movie. Like, he doesn't want to be there. Like, he's not a part of like the highest grossing movie of all time. Like, he does not care. And he's not like a big name actor at all, really, and the fact that he's not really like giving it his best is just kind of just really lame. And then you have these like kid characters, and these actors I've never like heard of before or anything, and they did a great job. It's weird though, because all the kid characters, they really do look the same in the movie. I was really struggling to tell the difference between the sons, especially. There's like a plot line where the youngest son, he like becomes friends with like this like big whale creature, and when that part started, originally I thought that was the oldest son in the scene, and then I found out, oh, it's not, it's the youngest son. It kind of happens with the daughter characters as well, normally in like close-up shots, because I mean there's this like size difference, and also like the youngest daughter is like really young. She's meant to be like, I guess like a 5-year-old. But in like some cases, if there's like a shot where you couldn't tell like the size of the character, like some shots that were underwater as well, you couldn't tell the characters apart like at all, which was just so, it was so frustrating at times. Anyway, so I saw this on the opening Saturday night, and I'm kind of disappointed that I did. I've been using the word disappointed a lot this video, but I was disappointed in myself that I saw this opening night, because there's no rush to go see this. Like, it's not amazing, it's not incredible. I don't even really care about the first Avatar movie. I didn't even give it that high of a review. So there's like absolutely no rush to go and see this movie, because it's just like, it's Avatar. Is there really like anything else to say other than, oh, it's just Avatar? Who cares? If you've seen the first movie, you've seen this one. Like, it's the same thing pretty much, except for, you know, it takes place in the water. You know, what's gonna happen in the third movie? Is it going to be like, oh, they go to like the snow and the Americans come back and they have like a gambling problem or something? It's gonna be something so stupid. I don't even know what to expect with these sequels. In the movie so far, it's tracking really well. I think on the opening night it made $50 million. Like, somewhere between like $30 to $50 million, which is like insane. That's a lot of money. I guess the main selling point of the first Avatar movie was that you could go see it in 3D, but 3D nowadays is kind of like frowned upon. Like, no one really goes to see 3D movies anymore because it's more of a nuisance than anything else. And I think that you can see this movie in 3D, but do you really want to sit in a movie theater for like over 3 hours wearing 3D glasses? Because it doesn't actually sound that appealing. I also don't know that if any case 3D does actually make movies better. It's just annoying. Like, I haven't seen a movie in 3D in years, maybe 10 years, and I don't miss it. I really don't miss it at all. I don't want to spoil it too much. I do have a lot more to say. Don't rush out to see the new Avatar movie. It's not worth it. Watch it on your TV. I didn't see the first Avatar movie in theaters. I watched that on a TV both times I saw it, and I had a great experience nonetheless. Okay, so the next movie we're going to talk about is a documentary called The Volcano.
You could feel the heat from the volcano.
From the description, it was a nice, easy hike. They didn't make it sound dangerous.
I knew what could happen out there, but you don't believe it will happen.
Run.
So this movie also came out very, very recently. It's a documentary about White Island in New Zealand, which was an active volcano that tourists could go visit. And what happened is that the volcano erupted while tourists were exploring it. Being a Kiwi myself, you know, I was very interested in kind of seeing how they get across this story. 2019 was just not a good year for New Zealand, like, at all. There was a couple of tragedies, and this was one of them. But there was a very like long like hunt afterwards to like try find anybody on the island. But then this documentary came out, and pretty much it's just kind of recapping what happened. And maybe it has an impact on how I feel about it, because I'm from New Zealand and I was here when it happened. But I was very underwhelmed by this whole documentary because it's made by fucking Netflix. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like any Netflix documentaries, but they're so bad. Like, they're really bad. They don't care about them. They're just content, so then they can put them on the platform. I haven't seen any of them that I've like enjoyed. They're all the same. They get a bunch of people that were there from like whatever they're talking about, sit them down, and they just get them to talk in front of a camera for like a couple of hours, and that's it. You know, I guess like they're getting across like historical like stories and everything, and people like them. You know, there's a place for these documentaries on Netflix, and people will watch them because people do like them. But I'm not one of those people. So 22 people were killed from the eruption. And it's just so sad to see that this is what's being brought out to like represent their story and how they were affected by this tragedy, which wasn't their fault at all. Like, that island should have never been open to the public. And then you have this Netflix documentary that comes out, and it's kind of like dedicated to them, but they don't try at all. And it's so sad to see. I'm very glad they could take from the stories of the heroes and put that into the movie, because there are a lot of people that kind of put their best foot forward and helped people get to hospitals and make sure that they were safe. And then there's people in the documentary who are talking about how people that they know died on the island, and sometimes like they don't know how they died. Sometimes they kind of do know how they died, but it's very tragic to see that pretty much everybody speaking about how they were on White Island when it went off, they were all tourists. Like, no one was from New Zealand, pretty much, apart from like the tour guides, but everyone was there because they were traveling overseas. And then I didn't know this, but no one in our country had actually admitted responsibility. Like, the island should have never been open, and they took people to it. And even though it's a very touching story and it's incredibly heartbreaking, just it being captured by people sitting down on a chair in their living rooms and just talking to a camera, like just being asked questions like, oh, so what happens? It doesn't make it a very well-made documentary. It's very bare bones and basic. There are probably articles that you could read out there if you wanted to know about the event that kind of capture what happened better than this documentary. I guess the best word I would use to describe this documentary is just like underwhelming. And this isn't the only one. I mean, Netflix has made dozens of these documentaries where they're about very important subject matters, but they don't do them justice at all, and it's very sad to see that way. I wish I had more to say about this documentary, but I don't, because it's like it's made an iMovie, pretty much. They just do not capture anything about it. It makes it very gut punching. They make it seem like, oh, this is what happens, okay, now move on. I can't say that I enjoyed it because of the way it was made. So if you wanted to know about the story, go online and read about it. Or maybe there's some videos on YouTube about it that kind of talk about it a lot better than this documentary does. But I don't think I could recommend it. So the final thing that I wanted to talk about was She-Hulk, because I had a video planned and I was writing the script and I got all the footage I needed, but it just, my words weren't coming out how I wanted them to, because the show is a trap.
Wow! Jesus, what the hell, man?
Still in control, no overwhelming feelings of rage.
No! A normal amount of rage!
You do revert back to Gen form when you sleep.
Was the air horn really necessary?
For comedy, absolutely.
It's very, very disappointing to see that Marvel has kind of turned to making this, and I'm not really a big fan of Marvel movies. And if you've seen my other videos, you can probably tell that I'm not a big Marvel fan anymore. I used to watch Marvel movies in a way where I was actually excited to see them opening night. And now Marvel has done these TV shows, and She-Hulk is trying to be very experimental with what they do. So it's a female-led superhero TV show, but instead of being an action show, I guess other stuff like Moon Knight and Miss Marvel, this one is a comedy. It's definitely not very humorous at all, and it's a bad show. It's a very bad show, but it's written in a way in which if you say that it's a bad show, then I guess, you're sexist and you're biased and you only like the same shit over and over, and that's why you don't like the show. But the show has so many more flaws, and it being a comedy rather than an action show is not a bad thing. Like, that's fine. I don't mind. I would prefer that Marvel kind of changes what they do and does something different like this. But when your line of comedy is just She-Hulk twerking on camera, it's not funny. Like, what's the joke? And then if people say, oh, like this is dog shit, people on like Twitter or anything turn and say like, well, you're just sexist. Like, you just hate women if you don't like She-Hulk. The actress who played She-Hulk, what's her name? Tatiana Maslany. So she tried to play like She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters, kind of like Elaine from Seinfeld is what I've heard. But the thing is that Elaine from Seinfeld is a good character because she's not written in a way where they're constantly pointing out that she's a woman. Like, Elaine is very equal to characters such as, you know, Jerry and George and Kramer. Like, she's just part of the four, like, and she happens to be female, and she's a very good character. She's funny. She's self-made without Elaine looking in the camera and saying, I'm a self-made woman, like She-Hulk does. And the show has some very appalling reviews. I'm scrolling through reviews on Letterboxd here. I saw the show like a while ago, so I'm having like trouble kind of like remembering what happened. But I guess every episode kind of is its own little plot, I guess. And the show is like slowly building up to something. And at the end, when it gets to that climax, it's not very rewarding. And then when we get to this conclusion, which is like, oh, all these cameos are happening, like Daredevil jumps in, and the Hulk jumps in, and the Abomination jumps in, and this other guy becomes a Hulk, and they all start like just fighting in this room, and it's this big fight scene like a Marvel movie does. And then She-Hulk goes, no, we're not doing this actually, we're a comedy show. Like, are you kidding me? The show is such a hypocrite. They already did this. They did it at the start of the show. There was a big fight scene between She-Hulk and the Hulk, which is in there because it's still trying to be like a Marvel TV show, even though it's saying it's not. And it's having all these cameos, like every episode, like, you know, Wong shows up and Daredevil shows up, you know, the Hulk shows up, the Abomination shows up, all in this one TV show. There's like one every episode. But at the same time, She-Hulk is looking at the camera and saying, oh, we're not a show that's just gonna have cameos like other Marvel movies, we're gonna be our own thing. But it's still, in a way, the same thing, just kind of trying not to be. While it is, it fails completely at being what it wants to be. I don't have any like respect for the show. I'm so done with all this like Marvel shit going on. Phase 4 just finished up. I just saw Black Panther last month, and I have no idea what's going on anymore. Like, I'm so lost, you know. But hey, I guess I'm just sexist and I'm biased and I like the same shit over and over, and that's why I don't like She-Hulk. Anyway, we're gonna wrap it up there. I'm working on my Black Adam video right now, so that should be up maybe next month. And then after that will be like the top 10 best movies of 2022, and then after that will be the top 10 worst movies of 2022. So, you know, I just decided with this video, we're just gonna talk about some movies that came out in between. I'll just get in front of the camera and just freestyle it a little bit. Just a little bit of easy content to get out there in between videos that I'm actually working harder on. Anyway, if you're mad at me because I don't like She-Hulk, you can unsubscribe. Like, I don't care. How do I outro a video? I'm just gonna end it like that. I'm just gonna end it here. How do I stop this recording?